Welcome to OnLine, which this month comes from San Francisco in California, the spiritual home of the internet. And that's what we're going to be focusing on in this program. We'll look at its incredibly short history, how it works, what we can use it for today, and what we'll be able to do with it tomorrow. San Francisco, a city where the impossible can become reality. They said that the Golden Gate Bridge could never be built. The frequent fog, 60-mile-an-hour winds and ocean currents were just too great a hurdle, but they did it. Today, the city is creating new bridges using computer technology. A city that has survived 2 major earthquakes is now the epicenter of the information superhighway. Here, some 60,000 people are employed by over 2,200 computer technology companies. Most of the major breakthroughs in the development of the internet have originated in and around San Francisco. But our story really starts here. We've come some 20 miles south of San Francisco to Stanford University in the heart of California's Silicon Valley. And thinking is big business here. Some 300 Stanford graduates have gone on to form high technology companies. Among them, major players on the internet, such as Yahoo, Netscape, and Sun Microsystems. The 8,200 acres of the Stanford campus has outwardly changed little since the 60s, the height of the Cold War, and when the US military first started researching the viability of creating a vast web of computers across the country, a network of networks. The concept was also quickly adopted by academia, and within a few years, all the computer networks in America were connected to each other. The internet was born. The way it works is fairly simple. Imagine 2 computer networks separated by, say, 2,000 miles. We're connected to one network, but want to be able to view files on the remote network. Our computer is equipped with a modem, a device that converts digital computer information into smaller pieces or packets that can be sent down a telephone line. We send a message requesting the info, the remote network sends it back, and we can then view it on our computer. Now imagine thousands of networks connected together in this way, being accessed by millions of people around the world, and you're starting to understand the power of the internet. Today, text, graphics, and even sound and video material can be exchanged this way. You can even join in at home by opening an account with one of the many internet service providers, companies that provide you with an entry point through your standard phone line into this network of networks. But to achieve this level of sophistication has required an immense amount of development, a subject that has been thoroughly researched by Stanford professor Dale Harris.
The use of the internet up until around the late 1980s was for 2 things. One was as an ongoing research project around the telecommunications technology itself, and the other, it was used for messaging, or for what today we would call email. It was very good for email. But to get beyond that, there had to be some additional capabilities added, which began to be developed in the late 1970s. One of the first was at the Super Collider Center at CERN in Geneva. And they took a lot of technical documents in that area, and they began to use what were called hyperlinks, the ability to, to click or to point at a line of text on your screen. You would choose that in a sense, and that would then connect you to another computer that would contain other information. The next big step occurred in the early 80s. The Supercomputer Center at the University of Illinois were looking for a graphical interface for this hyperlinking, as it's called. They created a system they called Mosaic, which has a kind of evolved over the last few years into the web browsers that we're all familiar now. In fact, that particular one evolved into Netscape.
The browser developed by Netscape, a company born at Stanford, is now just one of a range of products that help us display and find information on the internet. By establishing a common protocol, a language if you like, that any type of computer connected to the internet can understand, it's possible to share information globally. But there's an awful lot of it, so search engines were developed, a kind of electronic index to help us find what we're looking for. Another highly successful Stanford-bred company, Yahoo, provides this type of service. Founders David Filo and Jerry Yang were students at Stanford and as a hobby built a list of their favorite websites.
Over time, within a year or so, this thing got to be very big. It was taking up all their time. People were submitting sites to them for inclusion in this database that they were building out. And they had a crucial decision to make, which was, should they continue with this thing that finally had a name now, it was called Yahoo, and form a business and do that full time, or should they give it up, sell it, let someone else take over and continue their studies? They chose to start a business, and here we are.
It proved to be the right decision. Today, just 3 years later, Yahoo is valued at over $1.5 billion. The bulk of its income is generated by providing a radically new type of advertising.
Our revenue is almost solely generated from banner advertising, meaning you come into a Yahoo page, so typically that would be a category where we list our sites, part of our directory, and a little bit of real estate on that page is devoted to a banner ad for one of our sponsors. So companies who want to advertise to the audience that we reach pay us just like you'd pay in a magazine, just like you'd pay on network television, broadcast television, radio, for a spot, for a bit of real estate in our space. And they provide us the image and we flash that image up on the screen.
And that image will be seen by a staggering number of people. In the UK alone, the Yahoo homepage, the first screen you see when you enter their site, is visited some 500,000 times a day.
As much as it's been hyped as being truly extraordinary and unlike anything before it, I think actually, if you put it into context, it's simply one more medium in a world where we are very familiar with lots of different kinds of media. So we understand print media, we understand broadcast media, both television and radio. The internet sort of combines various aspects of all three of these and simply provides one more place where advertisers can tell people what they're all about. It's very much like a broadcast medium in some respects. I mean, the top page of Yahoo, through the top page of Yahoo, we can reach millions of people. Interestingly, though, it can simultaneously be a narrowcast sort of medium where via email or a chat room or a messaging system, you can have one-to-one communication or one-to-few.
One of the first organizations to make use of the World Wide Web was NASA. Users can access the latest photographs from the Pathfinder mission, read schedules for future missions, and of course get up-to-the-minute reports on shuttle launches. But being such a popular site does present problems.
We have typically one big server that's about the size of a refrigerator that we serve the web on, but right around a shuttle launch, we'll put 20 machines online and parallelize all the accesses so that we can make sure that we have the bandwidth for the traffic, because it seems like the entire world focuses on that event or a big chunk of it all within a few hours, and so we'll serve off a million or more hits in just a brief time right around a launch event.
Next look at how the internet is being used for business brings us back to California and Sonoma County, the heart of one of America's favorite wine-growing regions. Now, wine is an extraordinary product because of its huge variety. So even if you come up with something really good, it can be very hard to get noticed in a crowded marketplace. If you're big, you can afford to spend a lot of money on advertising. If you're small, you might consider marketing that product on the internet. Peter Granoff has been a professional sommelier and wine buyer for over 20 years. During that time, he's noticed some alarming trends in his industry.
There has been a progressive collapse in distribution in the United States. It's gone on for some years. In roughly 1950, there were maybe 5,000 distributors around the country. Today, there are less than 250, and the consolidation at the distributor level continues. In the same period of time, we've seen an explosion of small wineries, not just here in California, but Oregon, Washington, New York State, and other parts of the world as well. And smaller producers typically don't get effective representation from large distributors. So that's the first point. The second point that's important is that one of the most compelling aspects of small producers is their story. And for the consumer, the story of the winery gives you an added dimension of pleasure, an added dimension of understanding about the wine you're drinking. It puts it into a context that really enhances the experience.
In 1994, with his brother-in-law, Bob Olson, a computer expert, Peter developed Virtual Vineyards, an internet site to sell these very special wines.
We are selecting the product, and I really emphasize that. We're selecting it. We are not paid by the producer. It's not paid advertising. And the selections are based on Tim Gazer and my tasting the wines. And between the two of us, we have about 30 years of professional tasting and buying experience.
So you check everyone out?
Every single wine is tasted, and it gets, first of all, a yay or nay. We will use it, we will not use it. And then if we decide to present it, we put together our tasting notes, and there's a tasting chart which actually profiles the style of the wine for the potential consumer.
Alongside the tasting notes are extensive profiles of these tiny wine producers. Fisher Vineyards, for instance, make just 8,000 cases of wine a year from the crop produced by its picturesque vineyards clinging to the Mayacamas Mountains. How does winemaker Mitch Firestone Gillis feel about the use of high technology to sell his traditionally produced product?
I think it's fine, and it's a part of the American way of drawing a lot of things from the old world, but also giving it sort of an American touch. I think there are a lot of consumers that would prefer to shop that way, so we're going to accommodate them.
And what about the story of the vineyard? Do you think people are interested in knowing what goes on behind the scenes?
Oh, I do. I love, part of the job that I love is having visitors come to the winery, and they are in such awe. And they look at the vineyard, and they taste from a barrel, and I can tell that it was a truly memorable experience for them.
Down on the valley floor lies another virtual vineyard supplier, Landmark. Here, from just 56 acres, they produce 265,000 bottles of exceptional Chardonnay and Merlot wines. For Bob Cooley, the problem is not whether to use the internet or not, but whether it will help to maintain the premium quality profile and price of his wines.
So many people use the internet just for a marketing tool instead of a sales tool. Peter has been able to do both with their site. It has great marketing information on it as brand building for Landmark, for credibility. It also has a sales ability to it, which a lot of sites don't have. There's a lot of sites out there that just want to put information up and there's no answer. Peter has the answer. You're getting informed consumers, educated, informed people, and qualified buyers. You know, you have to have X number of dollars in your house to be able to have a consumer and up on the net to go shopping. So your person is partially pre-qualified.
Virtual Vineyards' use of technology runs far deeper than just the creation of its websites. With partner Bob Olson, Peter has created an entire operating system for their company that works for them wherever they are.
I am a user of the technology, a merchant who's using the technology, and as such, I carry a laptop with me. I can sit down in Fisher Vineyard's office here, hook it up to a phone line, check inventories, modify orders, check order status, actually develop the presentation. If Fred Fisher wanted to adjust his biography, for example, on the website, I could go into the publishing system right there across the net, make the change, and see it go live.
Virtual Vineyards is currently visited by around 80,000 people a month. They employ 15 people and sales are growing at 12% a month. So it's a roaring success. But Bob Cooley sees this as just the beginning. he envisages offering holidaymakers wishing to visit the vineyards a complete planning system.
We're on through Virtual Vineyards. We are starting up our own website, and you can contact the Sonoma County Wineries Association, which has a fairly thorough website for Sonoma County Vintners Association, which is 100 members. And you can actually do your whole tour before you ever get here and have it mapped out and spend less time fighting with your spouse, getting lost on the roads, and you can have a more pleasant vacation.
If America, as the world's largest user of the internet, is anything to go by, then it's clear it's also going to become a major part of the marketing mix for European advertisers. As we've travelled around the United States, we've been struck by how TV ads direct viewers immediately to the internet for more information and to place orders. So even the smallest of businesses can now market themselves internationally. It will actually change the way we do business. And it's not just business, it's also being used heavily and globally by major pressure groups.
Get up, stand up, get up, stand up.
For Amnesty International, the pressure group established to campaign for human rights around the world, the internet has presented a highly cost-effective way of getting their message across. One of their sites, Get Up, Stand Up, has won numerous awards for its creativity.
It's actually a site on which we have audio versions by famous artists, Peter Gabriel, Johnny Hooker, all sorts of people who are on there re-recording Bob Marley's song Stand Up For Your Rights, which Amnesty International has actually been donated the rights to. So you can go there and listen to music, but you can also find out about rights and your rights, everybody else's rights, and campaign from that site.
Amnesty's internet presence has also facilitated far easier communications with the far-flung corners of the globe.
We're able to email remote sections of Amnesty International. For example, in Nigeria, where it can take 8 or 9 times to try and get through to somebody on the phone, or days and days to get mail through to them, we can get a practically instant response by using electronic mail.
Amnesty provide a range of sites to circulate information and to canvass opinion on a variety of issues.
The refugee campaign site, which was created for a refugee campaign, enables people to get involved by registering their concern or printing a poster. Here people can just tap in their email address, click one button, and we've got a large list of everyone who's shown serious concern for the refugee crisis today.
Every person that signed our petition on the internet is a success. It's someone who said, yes, I agree with Amnesty's goals. I support the rights of refugees. That's a success on one level. And the other success is when we'll actually be able to take those names to the United Nations, to the people who decide policy on refugees, and prove to them that there's interest out there. They can't just do this kind of thing behind closed doors.
But can they point to any specific instances where their use of the internet has actually changed political opinion?
Quite a while ago we launched a campaign on China where we were able to put a lot of information onto our internet site. And we did it in such a way that you could download it off the site without it leaving any trace in the machine's memory. Now that's a great way of getting information into China and getting in untraceably so that people who access the site aren't penalised for accessing the site because no one knows about it. There's no trace of them doing that. The internet is a wonderful way of breaking down national barriers. It's a wonderful way of getting information and proliferating it throughout the world for people to be able to understand what's happening even in their own country where there's censorship. For example, I think in Zambia there was a censorship of the press there, but the press is still being produced on the internet.
Although the internet is already being used in many innovative ways, it still has its critics. It is slow, they say. So what needs to happen for this dynamic new medium to really take off? Well, basically it has to get faster and be capable of moving larger chunks or packets of information around for an ever-growing group of users. There are 3 main technologies that need to change. First, the phone lines down which the information passes need greater bandwidth. Fibre optic cable is the obvious answer and is currently being laid by most major telecoms companies. Secondly, modems must handle the information passed in larger chunks. If the history of these devices is anything to go by, they'll double in speed every 18 months or so. Lastly, there needs to be further advances in both server and end-user software. Microsoft, amongst others, have already stated their commitment to making this happen. So assuming the internet will become far faster, what can we expect from it in the future?
I think we're going to see it closely integrated in with television, for example, through such things as web TV, which you may be aware of, which allows you to access the internet using your television as a monitor. Obviously, that allows you to think about integrating television programming with information delivery and combining those as an application. I think we're going to be, it's going to touch all of our lives at work and at home. It's going to essentially revolutionize the way we communicate for good, and maybe also in some ways that maybe we wish wouldn't happen.
But I think there's always going to be a place for television. There's always going to be a place for radio. There's always going to be a place for books, things that you can take with you. And certainly what we're all competing for is people's time. And it may be that rather than sit around the radio every evening, you split some of that time, listen to the radio in your car, watch your television in the evening. Now the internet, the net, the web needs to sort of squeeze into all of that space, that time somewhere. But I don't think it's going to displace any of this. It's simply going to augment.
You might even be able to speculate that the internet will play a role in the collapse of closed regimes, such as the one in China, in mainland China, because I think that the dissemination of information. I mean, I think of the this picture of Boris Yeltsin standing on top of a tank, which was beamed to televisions all the way across the world, and certainly television helped change the U.S. the attitude of the average U.S. citizen toward the war in Vietnam. I think it's entirely possible that the internet will perform a similar function in the future in politics.
And that's it from this edition of Online in California. But we're going to be back again next month to look at some startling developments in the way technology is being used in education.